Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, they're falling like dominoes. There's just no other way to put it. Two at a time now. They're just falling one after another. And, of course, the big one is Congressman Eric Swallwell, California Democrat. Really, to me, one of the most repugnant, frankly, disgusting, evil people in public office. He was actually trying to make a run for California governor, and then the wheels just came off. And look, let me be candid with all of you. Swalwell, a rabid Trump hater. I mean, a fanatical Trump hater. And what is now coming out about Swalwell's personal life, and he's starting to resemble Bill Clinton. A sexual predator, someone who preyed on multiple women. There's now, 5, 6, 7 women now coming out saying that he engaged in sexual assault, sexual misconduct. 2 women now are openly accusing him of allegedly raping them, and they're just coming out of the woodwork. And it's not just that all these women have come forward and destroyed, really lit his career on fire. He is finished. He had to resign from Congress. He has pulled out of the race for governor. Now he's lucky if he stays out of jail. But that over 50 of his staffers, current and former staffers, wrote a letter, a public letter, saying they believe the victims, meaning we worked with this guy. We saw what he was like. We saw how he treated people both in the office and outside the office. And we're telling you, this guy is guilty. Now, what that says to me is that this was widely known in Washington. In fact, it's an open secret. This guy was terrorizing women going back 10, 12, whatever, 15 years, however long he's been in Congress. And yet, every step of the way, the Democrat leadership, from Nancy Pelosi to Chuck Schumer all the way down, deliberately turned a blind eye. He assaulted women. He raped women. As you're going to hear, he drugged women, allegedly, and then forced himself to have sex as they lay there, some of them unconscious. And this was an open secret. Many in Washington knew about it, and yet the Democrats never cared. And so the question is, why? Why now, all of a sudden, do the Democrats care to the point that they pressured Swalwell not just to drop out of the race for California governor, but to resign his seat from Congress? In other words, out. Because he's behind 2 Republican challengers in the polls in California. California, their primary system, they have a primary coming up, and in their primary system, the top 2 vote getters, they're the only ones that move on to the general election. And the problem the Democrats have is you've got 2 Republicans that are doing extremely well, Steve Hilton, former Fox News host, and a sheriff, Chad Bianco. And they have been leading in the polls. The Democrats, because they put so many candidates in the race, it has spread the liberal vote, divided and spread the liberal vote. And so now the danger is that they won't finish in one of the top 2 slots, which means a Republican will be elected governor of California. And of all the Democrats, the one that was leading was Swalwell, but he wasn't catching fire with the Democrat voters, with the voting base, and so they made a calculated decision. Let's release everything we have on Sexy Man Swalwell. Let everybody know who Sexy Man really is. And so they released it, and they started to come out, and then a trickle became a flood, and now he's gone. And so now they're hoping to get another Democrat installed before the election, the primary, to make sure that at least they get one of the two top slots, and then let the Democrat machine and all the illegals carry the Democrat to victory in November. But make no mistake about it. They knew about Swallwell, and they didn't care until he became a political liability. And for power and to keep their grip on the California governor's office, they'd sell their mother if they had to. Well, in this case, they sold Swallwell right down the river. Now, I want you to listen to this. So far, at least 5 women have come out against this monster. One woman, a staffer, a former staffer, says that he propositioned her repeatedly to have sexual relations, and then one night he got her drunk. And when he got her drunk, he took her into his hotel room, and then he raped her. She said she did not consent. She was too drunk to consent, but that Swallwell forced himself on her and raped her and raped her and raped her. And what is the common theme among all of these women that have now come out, alleging sexual assault, sexual misconduct, or out-and-out rape, is Swallwell would take these women back to a hotel room and either drug them or they were already intoxicated, and then, almost like a date rape, and then, like a sexual predator, he would pounce. The latest one is the one that I'm telling you is going to really sink him. And this is a former model. Her name is Lana Drewes. She met Swallwell about 8 years ago. She's 50 years old now. She was a former, at the time, 8 years ago, she was a model. She also owned a fashion software company. And she was a Democrat. And she was even maybe getting interested in local politics. Well, she met Swallwell at 2 public events. Swallwell showed interest in her and, in fact, said, hey, you know, I'm a powerful member of Congress. I've got connections with Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, the California delegation. I've got pull on Capitol Hill. I'm going to help your software company with quote-unquote connections. And he said he wanted to kind of take her under his wing and maybe groom her politically to run for local Democrat politics in California. And so he invited her to a 3rd public event. But before they did, he said, hey, let's meet for drinks. She said she had 1 glass of wine, where he then must have spiked or drugged her glass because he said he needed to get some paperwork in his hotel to go to this public function. And he said, hey, why don't you just come with me for a second? I'll grab my paperwork and then we'll head off to the event. Well, as they got closer to the hotel room, she says she began to feel no movement in her arms, her body. She began to get paralyzed. And before you knew it, he grabbed her, took her into the hotel room, threw her on the ground, and not only would he begin to rape her, but he began to choke her to the point that she passed out. She was unconscious. As she said at the press conference, I thought I was going to die. Listen now to Lana Drewes accused Swallwell of rape. Roll cut 12, a mic.
In 2018, while I was living and working as a model in Beverly Hills, and I also owned a fashion software company, I had contact with Eric Swallwell on 3 separate occasions after meeting him socially. He offered me connections to further my software company. And I also had an interest in local politics. He invited me to 2 public events. I knew he was married at the time and that his wife was pregnant. He was my friend.
Well, he wanted to be more than friends. And she was fighting back tears, choking back tears. She said she's been in therapy for years. She's going to show the receipts that she's been doing therapy for years because of what happened on that fateful night in 2018, and that she's been undergoing. She went to a rape crisis center, and anyway, and she's been undergoing a lot of therapy for many years. So she says, you'll see. I mean, I have all the evidence to prove this, that this is not me trying to pile on. I have been waiting for others to come out, but he was such a powerful member of Congress. He threatened me. He threatened the other women. Women felt afraid, intimidated. But now his reign of terror is coming to an end. And the question I have for you is also Tony Gonzalez. He's a Republican. He had to resign. I'm going to get into that as well. But in all seriousness, why do we have so many deviants in Congress? Whether it's sexual scandals, sexual predators, thieves, embezzling money, stealing money, it's almost like we're attracting a criminal class to go to Congress. All right, Swallwell now has fallen, and fallen very, very hard. He was the Democrat frontrunner for the governor to be the next governor of California to succeed Gavin Newsom. He, of course, was a very high-profile, rabidly anti-Trump Democrat on Capitol Hill, and a favorite of the left. MS Now loved him. CNN loved him until I'd say about a week ago. And woman after woman, victim after victim has now come out alleging in painstaking detail, just honestly sickening acts of sexual assault and even rape. Listen now. This is Lana Drewis. She is accusing Eric Swallwell of having raped her in 2018. She had a drink with him at the bar. They were going to go to a public event. She believes he drugged the drink, spiked it with something. By the time she got to the hotel room, he said he needed to get paperwork in order to go to the event. Then her arms, she couldn't move them. She couldn't feel them. Her body basically began to go slowly limp. She was paralyzed, and she had no control over her, over her nerves and her muscles. And he grabbed her, took her into the room, and then began to choke her. I guess he likes to choke women as he rapes them. And began to choke her, raped her, kept choking her, raping her. She went unconscious, and she honestly thought she was going to die. Listen now to her describe the harrowing details. Roll cut 12A, Mike.
On the 3rd occasion, I believe he drugged my drink. I only had 1 glass of wine. We were supposed to go to a political event, and he said he needed to get paperwork from his hotel room. When I arrived at his hotel room, I was already incapacitated, and I couldn't move my arms or my body. He raped me, and he choked me, and while he was choking me, I lost consciousness, and I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. Although I did not undergo a rape kit at the time, I disclosed the assault to the people closest to me.
And she eventually got into therapy, and she has a therapist. She said that this destroyed her life, physically, psychologically, emotionally. And this has all been documented with her therapist going back many, many years. And that she told her close friends and family what happened almost immediately after the alleged rape. Now, it's not the only woman. Former staffers now are coming out and saying pretty much the same thing. Again, a hotel room, he got them drunk or he drugged them, and then he sexually assaulted or raped them. Now, more women are coming out saying, sort of like Anthony Weiner, that he had an obsession with his private genitalia, forgive me, his private parts, and that he would take pictures and then unsolicited would just send them to female staff members. He would often try to send dirty text messages, trying to create a relationship or have a sexual relationship with them. Staffers have come out and said, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be vulgar, but you know what Monica Lewinsky did to Bill Clinton, that act? Well, that he would pull down his zipper in front of them and say, you know, service me. And that this went on for many, many, many years. This is, to me, what is incredible. Now, Pelosi is lying. She's saying she knew nothing about this. That is a blatant lie. Adam Schiff is saying, what? What? I had no... He lied. The one now that may actually get in big trouble is Senator Ruben Gallego, Gallego. He is a liberal Democrat from Arizona. Apparently, he and Swalwell are best buddies. They're friends. And Gallego stood by Swalwell almost to the bitter end until he finally had to throw him under the bus. And so he's getting a lot of blowback for that. But forget that. Let that go, as I like to say. The bigger problem now is that there is a video that has come out of Swalwell with, everybody's calling this person a sex worker. What, like prostitute? What, that's verboten now? That's forbidden now? What, it's too politically incorrect to say prostitute? Everybody's using the term sex worker. But anyway, let that go. With a prostitute, you see the video. She's a prostitute, and they're going at it. But someone was filming it. And the question now is, who was the third person that was filming Swalwell having intercourse with a quote-unquote sex worker, with a prostitute? And the rumors now are flying on Capitol Hill. Gallego is denying it. But they're saying, no, it was his buddy Gallego. Okay, look, I'm going to be very honest with all of you. I'm taking a little bit of a little sick, perverted delight in seeing the downfall of this snake, Eric Swallwell. I'll never forgive him for what he did. He's the one that had that long-standing affair, sexual affair, with a prominent Chinese spy. Her name was Fang Fang. The joke was bang bang with Fang Fang, while Swalwell sat on the House Intelligence Committee. So he was privy to highly sensitive, classified information while he was, literally sleeping with a Chinese spy. And God knows how much of our classified information, our secrets, he gave to Beijing. She was a honeypot operative, as they're called, and she said it wasn't easy to seduce him. He's extremely narcissistic, thinks very well of himself, arrogant, not very smart, actually quite a stupid man, and clearly a massive libido, a sexual predator who just cannot control himself. And so, to me, what he did was beyond disgusting, beyond unforgivable. And by the way, one of the most rabid anti-Trump, and that's saying something among the Democrats, but one of the most rabid anti-Trumpers in Congress. Invoke the 25th Amendment, there's Swalwell. Impeach, there's Swalwell. Call for Trump to be jailed, there's Swalwell. Talk about even assassination of Trump, there's Swalwell. I remember during the Russia collusion hoax, he was the one that ran around, anybody who defends Trump is a Russian spy. I was a Russian spy, according to him. At the time when Tucker Carlson was on Fox News, Tucker was a Russian spy. Everybody who defended Trump was a Russian spy. So that's the kind of guy Swalwell was and is. So, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, as they say. Now, he claims that he admits the affairs. He says he's been sleeping with a lot of women. He's, humiliated his wife. He feels very sorry for his wife, his kids, his family, but that he never assaulted or raped anyone. And that these are all lies. All of them, according to him, are made up allegations to politically topple him from being the front runner in the California gubernatorial race for the Democratic Party. So according to him, this is a political hit job by the Democratic Party, which begs the question, well, why would the Democrats take you out unless there's obviously a lot of truth to what these women are saying? Why would they take out an innocent man? And remember, Swalwell led the charge against Kavanaugh. He was one of the leading Democrats. And what was his argument against Kavanaugh at the time? That you have to believe all women. I can play you the cut. If a woman comes out and alleges sexual misconduct or harassment or assault, then you must believe all women, because women don't lie about these things. Remember, that was the slogan, that was the mantra, the talking point pushed by the Democrats and Swalwell. Well, now, all of a sudden, I guess when it comes to him, they're all lying. Listen now to one of the victims who claims that she was allegedly raped by him. Her attorney, Lona Drewis' attorney, Lisa Bloom, really ripping into Swalwell, saying his latest statements about sexual misconduct is another slap in the face to the victims. Roll cut 13, Mike.
I want to say something now directly to Mr. Swalwell. Your recent statement that you are just not perfect, you are not a saint, is just blather and spin. Stop it. Your statement that this is all just a matter between you and your wife is laughable, if not for the fact that it is a slap in the face to the victims. Your statement yesterday that you just made, quote, mistakes in judgment is defensive and minimizing. Stop it. Own your behavior.
He's now under criminal investigation. In fact, he's under 2 criminal investigations. One in Los Angeles and another one through the federal prosecutor in New York City. So Swalwell is going down, and he's going to go down hard. Now, this is Swalwell on the floor of Congress reading his resignation letter. Roll cut 11A, Mike.
I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress effective at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on April 14, 2026. I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. Signed sincerely, Eric Swallwell.
Now, that was one of his staffers who read that letter on the floor of the floor of the House of Representatives. And to show you how much they hate him, at literally 2:00 yesterday, they signed a statement saying that they're happy not to work for him anymore. They don't work for him anymore. They don't want to work for him anymore. They don't want to speak for him. And that they side with the accusers. That they completely believe the accusers. Now, I just got to say this. If you knew this man was an animal, and he clearly was an animal, why did you continue working for him all these years? If you knew he was a sexual predator, my God, a rapist, an alleged rapist, how could you continue working for him and covering up for him and deliberately turning a blind eye? That's, to me, what I can't wrap my mind around. Now, it's not just Swalwell. The Republicans now also have a sex scandal. And this involves Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. Now, this one's been around a little bit longer. Congressman Gonzalez has now admitted that he had an affair with one of his staffers. And the problem with him is not just that he's married, but let that go, but that this former staffer who then became a former staffer, went back home and was so distraught over their relationship that she ended up committing suicide. And in fact, she committed suicide, it appears, by burning herself alive. She lit herself on fire. And for months and months and months, this story has hounded and haunted Gonzalez to the point that Republican leadership said, look, we can't keep you on much longer. We're going to have to cut you loose. But he kept denying the affair and almost seemed to act like there was something mentally wrong with this staffer when the whole time he had been cheating with her, and he knew it was precisely the relationship that drove her to commit suicide. Now, he's announced his resignation as well, so he's on his way out. So like I said, they're marching out by twos. Now, and again, this was an open secret on Capitol Hill. Mike Johnson knew about it. Scalise knew about it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go to the phone lines. Mike and I were just having a really good discussion during the break. And let me just say one last thing, and then I want to obviously open it up to you, the best audience in the business. We do have a few lines open. 617-266-6868. I'm not trying to, honestly, I'm not doing the whole, I'm not trying to sound self-righteous or holier than thou or, I go to confession. Believe me, I am not without sin. But my God, this is Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, my God. Oh, really? And, I was telling Mike, I said, Mike, I want you to just stand back for a second. Let's take Congressman Gonzalez. It's bad enough you have an affair on your wife with a much younger staff member. And God knows what he promised her. Because she obviously thought he was going to leave his wife for her, or who knows. And the only reason why he got exposed was when she was in the process of killing herself or about to kill herself, she called 911 and said that he drove her to it. So his name was mentioned and it became public. So it was very hard to bury that story. And she ends up killing herself. Now, not only that you cheated on your wife repeatedly with a staff member, but that you're, in many ways responsible for her suicide. And yet, day after day after day, this going on for months. He's like, I had no affair. I hardly knew her. I'm telling you, that was, she was mostly in the district office. I hardly ever saw her. Like, you should see him. Like, what's her name again? What? Oh, I have a lot of staffers. Who? What? And the parents are crying. The siblings are crying. They're devastated. And you just go on like it's no big deal. So forget lying about the affair, bad enough as that is. You're going to just basically cover up the fact that you're responsible for this poor woman committing suicide. And I said this to Mike. I said, Mike, you want to know why the country's in such a mess? We're governed by sociopaths. That's a sociopath. No concern for human life whatsoever. Now, Swalwell, that's even a degree worse. You know, Mike said to me, Jeff, how did this guy stay in office as a member of Congress after sleeping with a Chinese spy? I go, Mike, welcome to my world. Because that's what I've been saying for years. He slept with a well-known Chinese spy while he was on the House Intelligence Committee, which means he had privileged access, very few people in the country have, to some of our highest secrets, top secret, sensitive, classified information. And of course, as he was plugging her, she was plugging him for the info. And when the story finally broke, you know what Fang Fang did? Bang, bang, Fang Fang. She right away, first plane to Beijing. She hightailed it out of here. And once she was in China, and the media in this country covered it up, they were bragging how much they were able to get from Swalwell. And yet, the New York Times, the Washington Post, this is CNN, MS Now, said nothing. Nothing. They were promoting him to be the next governor of California. They kept having him on show after show after show. As long as you can spew hatred against Trump, and nobody could spew it more virulently and more disgustingly and more hatefully than Swalwell. They couldn't care less. The guy committed treason. By the way, Hollywood elites poured money into his campaign coffers. Cher, big fan of Swalwell. Robert De Niro, that clown. How much money did he pour into Swalwell? Hollywood said, this is our guy. This is Jimmy Kimmel, that scumbag, with the late night show. Swalwell launched his campaign for governor on Jimmy Kimmel's show. So the Hollywood left lionized Swalwell. You know, all of them, hashtag Me Too, believe all women. And everybody knew what he was a monster. Everybody knew that he was a sexual predator. Everybody knew. You don't put a woman near this guy, because before you know it, she either gets drunk or there's her drink gets spiked, and off they go to the hotel room, because that's his modus operandi. Now, all of a sudden, Kimmel doesn't say a word. De Niro, quiet. Cher, quiet. All the Hollywood celebrities, quiet. Everybody now is playing stupid like they never knew him. You phonies, you frauds, you. So you have rapists, traitors, sociopaths, crooks. That's the ranks of Congress. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but that's the swamp. That's the political class. And you want to know why the country's in such a mess? Look at our leaders. Now, one last thing, and this to me is the mother of all points. This is how the swamp operates. In other words, I'm just going to use Swalwell as an example, but you can go to Gonzalez, you can go to whoever you want. The fact that he was allegedly raping and sexually assaulting women and spiking their drinks and drugging them, and then he would drag them to the hotel, where he's choking them, because it's not enough to rape him, he's got to choke him as he rapes them. Okay, that's the sick guy that he was. They knew that, but they held it over him. Blackmail is at the heart of power in Washington, D.C. In a way, they almost want you to commit certain acts like this, because then they can hold it over you. And that's what they were doing to Swalwell, and that's what the Republicans were also doing with Gonzalez. I'll get to that in a second. But when it comes to Swalwell, that's why whenever Pelosi needed him to toe the line, or later Hakeem Jeffries, if he went, if he was if he was thinking, I want to defend my constituents, I want to actually be independent and do what's best for my voters. We got the video, Eric. We've got the papers. We've got the documents. We've got the names. Sexy man, you really want us to have these women start coming out? Do you really want to see that video of you with that prostitute? Sorry, sex worker. In a hotel room, and the two of you going at it? You want that to come out? If I were you, you're going to vote the way we tell you to vote. That's the basis of the system in Washington. Gonzalez, ditto. They could hold this against Gonzalez now, the affair, the suicide, all of it. The only problem was she mentioned his name before she committed suicide in a 911 call. So that was harder to bury. But that's how Mitch McConnell keeps people in line. That's how John Thune keeps people in line. That's how Boehner kept people in line. That's how McCarthy for a while did. That's what Mike Johnson does. That's how the game is played. That's the basis of the power of the swamp. They want to find a weakness. They want to exploit that flaw, that vice, whatever it's, if it's greed, if it's lust, if it's whatever it may be, raping women, whatever it may be. And then they have you. It's what the Russians call kompromat, compromising information. It's what Jeffrey Epstein, that's how he made his $1 billion. He would gather kompromat so that powerful people both here and abroad could be blackmailed. And if they need to destroy you, if you become politically inconvenient or a liability, i.e., the top two Republicans were leading in the polls for the primary. And only the top two move on to the general election. So Swalwell wasn't doing it for the Democrats. He wasn't separating himself from the other Democrat candidates in the field. He was ahead, but he wasn't in the top two. And they're like, well, we got to get rid of this guy. And okay, let's take him out. We have the information, drop it. And now he's gone. 617-266-6868. Lynn in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lynn, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Lynn?
Good. Thanks for taking my call. What I wanted to talk about were the drugs, Rohypnol, the date rape drugs. As you know, I do this for testing. So I get a lot of people in for this. And the problem with Rohypnol and the others, it's tasteless and so forth, so it can be easily put into a drink. It affects them that quick. And when the woman said she couldn't raise her arm, it hits the central nervous system. So it's very fast acting. So the problem, and I tried to get a hold of people and young girls to let them know, this drug leaves your system so quickly. So to even prove a case, you would have to be tested immediately with the urine specimen the next day. Because if you don't catch that first bit, like within 12 hours or 24, it's out of your system. I've done hair tests on people. So when you do a hair test, we have to wait a week. It's usually 7 to 10 or 7 to 14 days. We have to wait for the drug to get into the hair. I've done a few of those. It's quite expensive to do, but they usually come out negative because in testing with hair, the drug has to accumulate in the system, in the hair. And a one-time use may not get a positive. I've had these people come in, they don't remember. Like I said, it has an amnesia effect. They totally, during the time they wake up the next day, they don't know what the heck happened to them.
You know, Lynn. Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah.
I promise I'll let you finish, but just because you're touching on something so important, several of the victims have said that they go, I just, like the next morning, I didn't want to sleep with him. He dragged me into his hotel room, and she said, but it's like I almost forgot what happened. I'm like, did he rape me? Did he actually have, forgive me, did he have sex with me? Like, what? And there a couple of them are making your point that they're almost like not sure did it happen because their mind is so fuzzy. So you're saying that's one of the effects of the drug, correct?
Yes, amnesia. And I think it's called a retrograde, or not retrograde, but it's an amnesia that they can't remember. This drug, Rohypnol, is 10 times the strength of Valium. So if you've ever had a Valium, you can just imagine. And a Valium, you can feel right away. So I talk to women all the time, and especially young kids in colleges. And you hear it on the radio once in a while as an advertisement. Always not go by yourself, go together. And hopefully, not that you do get drugged, but hopefully there's one person that can take you to a hospital right away, so they can be with you so you can get tested. I had one woman went to a bar by herself. Someone slipped something in her drink. She felt it. She knew exactly what it was. She walked out of the bar, went to get to her car. She just made it to her car to get in. That's how fast it happened. She stayed and slept in her car. She locked herself in because, A, she couldn't drive. B, she didn't have anyone that could take her somewhere. But she didn't want him to get a hold of her. And so I can't tell you how many people I have. And it's just the saddest thing. I had a young girl once, 12 years old. This happened to her. I don't want to explain too much because it's personal information. But it's an awful drug. Drugs, all of them.
Lynn, if you feel, like let's just take that rape, the alleged rape victim, Lana Drewis, where she says, look, I met him at several public events. I knew he was married. I knew his wife was actually pregnant at the time. So I want you to know there was nothing romantic going on between us. He did say he was going to help me with my software company. I was like, great. I'm a Democrat. He says, hey, maybe you can run for city council or local office. I'll help you out, blah, blah, blah. And so we're going to go to another public event. But he says, hey, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about your software company. So she's thinking, okay, it's business. And they're sitting down and, okay, before you go, it's whatever, 7, 8 o'clock at night, before you go off to an event. Hey, let's have I'll have a drink. You have a drink. Fine. Have a glass of wine. And she's drinking the glass of wine. And within about 10, 15 minutes, something is not right. And he says, yeah, I just got some paperwork in my hotel room. Just come with me. We'll just grab it. And then we'll head off to the event. So foolishly, she goes with him. And by the time she got to the hotel room, as she said, my arms are frozen. My body's starting to go limp. I realize I'm in trouble now. And that's when he rapes me and chokes me and almost, I'm unconscious. And I thought he was going to kill me. Is there anything at that point, once that drug is in your system and your muscles are starting to go limp and, your body is, you can't stand. Is there anything you can do to shock your system, to anything to counteract the drug, anything at all? Or is it at that point you're at the mercy of the drug?
To be honest, I'm not a pharmacologist and so forth, but I would think you just can't move. So there is another drug they give during surgery, certain types of surgery, where they give it to you after they've sedated you somewhat. And it gives you a cataleptic effect. And what that means is you can't move. So my cousin was having some type of surgery. She was a nurse. And they kind of gave her the drug before she was really out. And she really panicked because she could not move. So she couldn't do anything, but she was totally with it. and she knew that they gave her the medication the wrong way. I mean, everything turned out all right, but to be honest, I'm not sure, but you know, or anyone knows if they had a little too much to drink or mixed it with something. Once it hits, it hits. So, and he's right there, so he knows what he's doing, obviously. Correct? So there's not a whole lot you can do. This one girl that left the bar, I don't know if this happened to her before, but she knew something wasn't right. You know, we all have a glass of wine or something, and after one wine you feel like this, you're like, wait a second. And you know the actor that did those to the people, too. His name escapes me right now. He did
Bill Cosby, too. And I mean, many people do that.
Whole thing.
No, Lynn, what does it say about somebody that you drug them in order to rape them? I mean, you got to be a really sick puppy. You know, I'm not talking about a Casanova, a playboy. You know, the guy's got he's got a sex drive, and you know, he likes to conquer, have sexual conquests and sleep around with women. Because there you could say, well, it's at least, I mean, it's bad for the wife. It's a betrayal of the wife and the kids. Don't get me wrong. But okay, it's consenting. You know, she wants to sleep with him. He wants to sleep with her. Okay. So they go to the hotel room and they're going at it. This is completely different. This is you incapacitate a woman and then you rape her. And as you rape her, this guy's sick. And then you start choking her. Like you get, like you get your jollies out of, like wanting to kill somebody? I mean, what kind of a pathological person does that? Your final word to you, Lynn.
Hey, it's not right. It's awful. And if it happens to anybody, it's sick.
Oh, I mean, this guy, he's a monster. He's a monster. Oh, there's no question. He's an animal.
Yeah.
Oh, Lynn, thank you. Great call. Really informative call. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeff, you asked a question at the opening. Why are so many sick
people in Washington? That was a rhetorical.
That's incredible, Larry. Hold on. Your voice morphed like a computer. So hold on. Let's see. It's, you're like, ooh. That's how you started to sound. All right. Let's reconnect with Larry. Okay. Larry. Do we have human Larry or Android Larry? Not yet. Okay. Larry, hang on. We're going to go to somebody else. We're going to come back to you. Okay, Larry? I promise. We just got to get that connection fixed. All right. Let's go to Brian in Connecticut. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. It was good to talk to you again.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, how does the Democratic Party have a serial rapist in their midst and no one knows about it? And it wasn't just an overnight thing, but apparently they developed amnesia about that. So that's point number one. Secondly, all of Swalwell's projection on Kavanaugh was like looking in the mirror. He's always accusing the Republicans of doing what he was doing, which is a guilty conscience, to say the least. And the last thought I had was Nancy Pelosi must have a very effective blackmail machine, because how do you keep so many women silent for so long and then on a dime unleash them to come forward all at once? That's all I wanted to talk about.
Brilliant. I'm telling you, you're a brilliant genius. Your IQ at least 140. Brian, I'm telling you. This shows you what a blackmailer and a political thug Nancy Pelosi is. And you're right. They had a serial rapist among them. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, 7:20 Wednesday. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
All right, today's entry for Truth or Troll would have been about Trump's AI picture depicting himself as Jesus or a doctor. But since we talked about that for 4 hours yesterday, today's entry instead is a crazy leftist TikToker who posted a video about how all of your grass lawns are racist.
I can't stop thinking about how grass lawns are racist and, like, based in white supremacy. If that doesn't make sense, that's okay, I guess. It seems really obvious to me. It's really upsetting. Bring back weeds. Bring back clover yards. Look, can anything just be okay in its natural state, or do we just have to whitewash everything, make it a competition, and use it as a sign of your worth as a human being in society? Like, can we just have weeds?
I mean, I just don't understand. Like, how does someone even think about this?
College. I'm telling you, that's what. I bet her parents spent, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're in such deep debt to send her to university, and this is what they get back.
Yep, that's just what you get.
No, really.
But anyway,
she sounds like AOC. You were normal really before you left, and now, sorry, honey, I'm a racist. Sorry, sweetheart, what is it? Because I mow my lawn?
Yeah, so there's the question. Is she just trolling here by saying everyone's grass lawn is racist? Just let everything grow. Let it grow, let it grow. Or is she just trolling here?
Oh, no, this is truth. There's no trolling here. I mean, this is 100% unadulterated, from her point of view, moonbat, Marxist, crazy truth. This is critical race theory to the nth degree. And my question to her would be, well, I mean, I don't know, using a dish, a washer and dryer, cleaning your clothes, detergent, that's white supremacy too, huh? Just, how about taking a shower, bathing, using soap, shampoo, white supremacy. Just walk around au naturel. Never take a shower. Why would you do that? Hey, don't use toilet paper. Don't do that. You go to the bathroom, you don't wipe. Au naturel. It's all white. And even, look, toilet paper, it's even white, for God's sake. It's white supremacy. This is what 250 grand gets you. And I feel very sorry for those poor parents. And that's why I urge parents now, be very careful where you send your child to university, because they're going to come back sounding just like this. An absolute imbecile. Really, you can't get a woke idiot. I don't know how you can get any stupider than this girl right here. But that's me. So I want to ask all of you, this woke TikToker, social media, quote, influencer, now says that if you mow your lawn, that's a form of white supremacy. That you should just let everything, the weeds, just, like the weeds, and make your backyard look like, like somewhere in the prairies. Just weeds everywhere. An absolute mess in your backyard. Is she telling the truth? Does she really believe what she's saying? Or do you think she's just trolling to get a rise out of people? Truth or troll? I think she's serious as a heart attack. This is a seriously brainwashed woman. This is what Bill in Sudbury would say. Or Chris in Gloucester. This is what a moonbat would say. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. Larry in Arkansas. Hopefully we've reconnected with you, Larry. Please go ahead, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. You sound like a normal human being.
What I'd ask was, you asked why all these sexual deviants are in Washington. I asked, is that rhetorical?
But Larry, let me ask you, in all seriousness, I mean, yeah, Congress has always been known for having some corruption and some, shady characters, but not at this level and this many. What do you think accounts for the fact? I mean, you've got serial rapists, sociopaths, gangsters, oligarchs, crooks, criminals, thieves. It's almost like now we're governed by a criminal class. Or am I overstating it, Larry?
It's always been there, Jeff. When I first got into politics, it was like my first year in the military, starting to try and understand it. There is a saying, a politician can never get caught with a dead prostitute or a live male room. That's going back 40 years. You had Kennedy and Frank Dodd were famous for pulling, trying to check my words. They called it a sandwich on waitresses, if you remember that.
Well, Ted Kennedy, that I personally witnessed myself when I was at the Capitol Grill. Okay, I want to read to you a text I got. It's from 603. You can text the Kuhner man, 70470, 70470. And it goes back to the question I asked in my opening monologue. You look at Eric Swallwell, now Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Republican from Texas. He's had to resign. But Swallwell is clearly the more sensational one. 5 women, more are going to come out. He drugged them allegedly, took them to a hotel room, raped them, sexually assaulted them. As one of the victims, we played the cut, choked her, repeatedly choked her as he was raping her to the point that she eventually became unconscious and she thought she was going to die. And you have the whole staff saying they believe the women. And former staffers, current staffers, over 50, signed a letter saying they've worked with him. They've seen what a horrible man he is. Other women are coming out now. He was like a Anthony Weiner type, taking pictures of his private parts and then sending it to women unsolicited. He was out of control, and he was out of control for years. And the question I asked is, how come so many perverts are in Congress? But even more than that, you look at a Mitch McConnell, you look at a Nancy Pelosi, you look at a Joe Biden, I could run down the whole list. How much money they have stolen over the years. Insider trading, selling the country's secrets to the highest bidder, walking in, take Ilhan Omar. 2 years ago, she was literally in the red. She owed the banks money. Now she's worth over $44 million. Other members of Congress, they're worth over $100 million, $150 million, $200 million. They're thieves. They're thieves. These are crooks. And so it's almost like we don't just have a ruling class, but we have a criminal ruling class. So why? Why is it now that we're ruled by sociopaths, rapists, criminals, you name it? Okay, really, the worst of the worst. What's happened? Well, this is 603. And I don't know if I agree completely with 603, but I want to run it by all of you. Jeff, as it's said, the cream always rises to the top, but then again, so does the feces. Okay, let's put it that way. I don't know why we should be surprised to discover a reprobate criminal class of people populating the heights of our government. They are merely a reflection of the greater society at large. Now, there are, of course, exceptions, but let's be honest with ourselves. We undeniably live in a nation that has been demoralized for decades. Morality means little. Promiscuity is so widespread that chastity is almost unheard of. Divorce is rampant. Substance use and abuse are at epidemic levels. And the value of human life means almost nothing. I could go on and on. I'm sorry. But the cream of that crop is not going to be particularly virtuous. So what do we end up with? We are left with lowbrow people in $3,000 suits who run for office, not out of a sense of responsibility to the country, but out of a sense of personal gain, who are then elected to a position that has built-in protections and very low accountability. Inevitably, the untrustworthy dregs of a demoralized society end up with their hands on the levers of power, and the downward cycle of degradation and debauchery continues. In other words, you get the leaders that you deserve, to sum up the text. And as our society loses its moral moorings, our moral core, and morality just, means little and continues to mean less and less. Well, what do you think you're going to get as leaders? You're going to get the Pelosis, the Swalwells, the Ayanna Presleys, the Ilhan Omars, the John Thunes, the Mitch McConnells, I could run down the whole list. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get the founding fathers. You're not going to get patriotic statesmen and stateswomen. What you're going to get are people on the make. And some of them are rapists and sociopaths. Predators, criminal predators, financial predators, sexual predators. Now, I just got to say this, and maybe I'm running in a different circle. Maybe I'm just, not that worldly of a man. I can see that. But most of the people that I know and that I deal with, I'm not saying they're perfect. They're far from perfect. Obviously, they go to confession like I do at my church or community or whatever, my friends, my family. But they're not raping people. They're not stealing and embezzling money. They're not sleeping with Chinese spies and selling the country's, secrets to China. They're not involved in insider trading. They don't, have affairs with much younger staff members. And then when they end up committing suicide, stand there and say, what? I didn't know her. What? Her? Never hardly knew her. What? They don't do a Joe Biden and, allegedly have inappropriate sexual showers with 11-year-old daughters. Or take their two fingers and digitally rape Tara Reid, one of their staffers. They just don't do that. They're flawed. They have, they sin. They're not perfect. Fine, but they're not monsters. They're not the worst of the worst, as the texter put it, the dregs of society. So I don't know if that's completely accurate. I think there is just so much power and money and temptation and fame because Washington now is like the modern day Rome of the Roman Empire, that it's like moths to the flame. It attracts these kind of people because look, let's just take Swalwell, but we can go, one after another. He's a loser. Oh, really, honestly, objectively, he's a loser. He's stupid. He was a horrible lawyer. He's a complete narcissist. He's arrogant. He's off-putting. He's utterly unfaithful to his wife and has been for decades. He treats people like absolute garbage. How would this guy ever succeed in the private sector? He wouldn't. But suddenly he runs for Congress and he gets power. And the power goes even more to his head. And then he begins to use that power to prey and terrorize women. And before you know it, you have a serial rapist. Or you have a guy like him who's doing videos of him just to show you how out of control and arrogant this guy was. He was doing that we know of, who God knows how many more there are out there, a video of him sleeping with a prostitute, having sex with a prostitute, being filmed by a third person. And the rumor is, it's a rumor, he denies it, but the rumor is it was the senator from Arizona, the Democrat, Ruben Gallego, his best friend, i.e. kind of like a threesome. And now you know why there's a massive slush fund, taxpayer money, that we keep paying out for all of these members of Congress to keep the people they've been sexually harassing or assaulting quiet. And when a bill was introduced to open up the names of the people in that slush fund, almost every single member of Congress, with the exception of 57, so over 350, Democrat and Republican, voted to keep it secret. Okay, let me ask you, what do you make now of the resignation of both Congressman Eric Swallwell and Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Democrat, Republican, both of them mired in, frankly, sordid, disgusting sex scandals? Gonzalez now had to resign because he had an affair with a former staffer who then committed suicide. The whole time he lied about it and did his best to try to cover it up, while Swalwell now is facing allegations, multiple allegations, of not just sexual assault, but now two women are saying he raped them. 617-266-6868. Eddie in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, Eddie.
Jeff, I lay this right in the lap of the press. You know, they're coming out now saying, well, we've known about this for years, and you never reported it? I mean, this guy was running for president, running for governor, and none of this came out until they decided in California, we've got to get narrow the field out there or we're going to lose. And, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, is keep an eye on everything, and they don't. They lie. And I'm sorry, Jeff, but people on both sides, you know, they believe it or not. That's just politics. They're saying that. They can't prove that. And I don't know. This poor guy, he's got young kids at home. He's doing this.
Eddie, I'm just curious, how do I say this? How rampant do you think it is on Capitol Hill of, you know, I'm not just talking sleeping with the interns or sleeping with staffers, because that's been going on for a long time. But we're not talking about that, bad as it is. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're married, okay? But, you know, let that go, as I like to say. I'm talking now sexual assault, rape, spiking their drinks with drugs, choking them as you rape them, you know, whatever, getting them, you know, dragging them into a hotel room. And then, and that's another thing. I mean, I don't even want to go down there, but, you know, I get an affair. I mean, mentally, I get it. Okay, you find her attractive, she finds you attractive, and you're having an affair, whatever. You're in a hotel room and, you know, you're doing the deed. Okay, I get it. But to have a limp body, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be gross, but, you know, a limp body, a person drugged, paralyzed, incapacitated, and you're just doing your thing. You're sick. Like, I don't get the thrill. I really don't. What's that? I don't understand that. You know, I mean, and then to choke the person as you're doing it. It's almost like, you know, let me see how far I can go, you know, killing the person, choking the person. Almost there. I'm almost there. Let me pull it back. I mean, you're a psychopath. But so I don't understand this. So you get a woman immobilized, paralyzed, in a mortal fear, you know, or she's passed out. And so then you just rape the woman? This is what I mean. You're talking about moral degenerates on an unimaginable scale. Eddie, am I wrong?
Jeff, but let me try to answer some of this. I mean, I heard Rashida Tlaib yesterday, and they asked her, "Are you going to vote to oust him?" And she said, "I'm going to vote, but I'm going to vote to oust." What's the other guy's name?
Gonzalez.
It's tit for tat. They probably wouldn't have done this unless they had another body on the other side. And just remember, Jeff, and you've already said it. When you pay your taxes today, some of this goes to that nice slush fund, and it's not just all sex and everything. Like you say, it's money. I've said several times on this show that you got to invest. Look at what they had when they came in and what they're worth now, and let them explain it. Because Nancy Pelosi, what'd she say? That after she denied that she knew anything about Eric Swallwell, who I believe works in her area, she's like his mentor, and she knew nothing about this. But then I hear she got books on all of these people. That's why all the Dems vote in unison. You got a book on them. You don't vote. Hey, here's what we're going to do to you, and they did it to them.
You're right, and I would go even further. And I don't know if you will agree or disagree with me on this, but it's almost like the mob, where it's not just that you get a book on somebody or whatever, or videotape or whatever, compromising information, so you can control them, and that's how you keep your party in line. Like the way the Pelosi keeps the and Hakeem Jeffries now, they keep the Democrats in line. But it's almost like you want people of a sordid, criminal, or deviant nature, because then you can control them. In other words, you don't want somebody of integrity. If someone's of integrity, you're like, no, primary the person. Because if that person becomes a member of Congress, then if that person can't be blackmailed, if that person can't be bought, if that person can't be intimidated or bullied, we got a problem. So it's almost like a job requirement. We need somebody really sleazy to run, because if they're sleazy, then we can control them and blackmail them. Eddie, am I wrong?
No, like I said, they vote in unison. We always say that. They never break them. Well, this is why they don't break them.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. That's why they never break ranks. Because they hold it over you like a sword like the sword of Damocles. Yeah, you really want Eric? You want your wife to know? You want your kids to know? You want the family to know? You want everybody to know? The video of you with the prostitute, and the orgies that you're doing with other so-called sex workers. You want Eric? Yeah, you want that to come out? How about the staffers who are saying you raped them? You really want that to go public, Eric? Oh, you're going to back me? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your support, Eric. I appreciate it. So I think, Eddie, you nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Eddie, thank you very much for that call. All right, I want to go to Mark in New Hampshire just very quick. Now, nobody believes her. I'm telling you, nobody believes her. But here's the piranha Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi was on C-SPAN, and she's saying, I knew nothing of what Swalwell was doing. It's a shock. I can't believe it. As Eddie said, she was his political mentor. She helped him rise the ranks of, power in Washington. She groomed him to eventually run for governor back in California. His staffers knew, other staffers knew, the media knew, everybody knew, except her. Isn't that incredible? Roll cut 26. Mike.
Some Republicans and others are saying that Democrats turned kind of a blind eye, that they knew what he was up to.
No, that's
or
not
what the
true.
allegations
That is
were.
absolutely positive. It's true that they may say that, but it is absolutely not true.
You had no idea?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. I had none whatsoever.
Yeah. Like she didn't know about the insider trading. You're worth $450 million on trades. By the way, all through her husband. She's smart. She doesn't do it herself. And nothing is in writing, ever. She doesn't email her husband. She doesn't text her husband. It's all done like the mob by phone. Because what's said on the phone, you don't know. But it's almost a perfect 100% record. I'm telling you, they're so arrogant. If I was one of them, I'd say, let's make a few bad stock picks. I mean, sure, we lose a couple $1 million, but this way we can turn around and say, hey, look, if you're going to audit us, you know, we weren't 100% right. Look, this stock, well, that one didn't work. Hold on. This one here, well, see, that one failed. But no, they're so greedy and they're so arrogant. 100% rating on stock picks. The husband. And it's just, and everything he picks are companies that are affected by legislation that it comes out several months before he made his pick. So it's coming down the road. 6 months from now, oops, Pelosi says to her husband, buy this stock, whatever, this healthcare company or this pharmaceutical, it just got approved, but the public doesn't know. Wink, wink. And there's Paul Pelosi. And he, $5, $10, $15 million buy. And then guess what? 3, 4, 5 months later, everybody realizes, whoa, this pharmaceutical company's going to get a massive grant. Their stock is soaring. And there's Paul Pelosi benefiting. What a coincidence. Every single time, huh? You just, that is, by the way, illegal. It's criminal. It's illegal. Never mind being immoral and unethical. It's illegal. Listen now to Kevin McCarthy. I'm not a big fan of his, but former House Speaker. He was on ABC, and he said, look, I'm telling you, Pelosi knew. How do I know? I told her 6 years ago. He's sleeping with a Chinese spy while he's on the Intelligence Committee. He's doing bang bang with the spy. Her name is Fang Fang. Roll cut 25. Mike.
Listen, let me be very clear. I tried to get rid of Swallwell 8 years ago. When I got the briefing, when I became leader with the FBI, Nancy Pelosi was in the room. I turned to her and said, how can you keep her on Intel? Intel is a select committee that only the leaders put on, that you know all the secrets that the members do not. But I made a motion.
Was this about sexual misconduct allegations, or?
It was a combination with the Chinese spy and led to all that. Every member in Congress knows not to let any young staffer get around Swalwell or Matt Gaetz. It's not a secret there. There's a reason why you didn't want those two people around.
Notice that dig at Gaetz, because Gaetz ousted him. So he had to get that shot in about Matt Gaetz. But anyway, okay, let that go. The fact of the matter is, look, he's right. Everybody knew who Swalwell was. The guy's look, it's not, and I want to stress this, it's not that he's a, quote, playboy, okay, Casanova. Oh, he's a womanizer. I mean, geez, this guy, I mean, he'll seduce the skirt off of you, okay? Be careful. Your wife's not safe with him. Your girlfriend, before you know it, she's sleeping with the guy. Okay? I'm not talking, whatever, Brad Pitt or George Clooney or, these, romantic lovers. Okay? It's consensual. Honey, why'd you betray me? I don't know. He's just a sexy guy. No. He rapes you. He drugs you. He sexually assaults you. Okay? He's into sick, perverted things. He grabs you by the throat and he slams you on the ground as you're paralyzed. And he chokes and chokes and chokes as he's raping you to get his jollies. Stay away from this guy. He's a freaking rapist and a sex predator. In other words, he's like Bill Clinton. Almost to a T, he's like Bill Clinton. But notice with the Democrats, huh? They love their sex predators. And they know, and they can play stupid and turn a blind eye with the best of them. So the truth of the matter is, they don't care about women. They don't care about women's rights. It's a show. It's a lie. What they care about is power. And as long as you're useful to them, they will keep you and protect you and shield you and let you commit crime after crime, rape after rape, assault after assault with impunity. But once you become a political liability, and in Swalwell's case, he was politically losing the California governor's race. In other words, power. He stood in their way now. They needed to replace him, and he wouldn't go. Then they destroy you. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, buddy.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, bud. You know, it's sunny. It's nice out. No more ice on the lake. Gonna put the boat in, you know, get ready for spring, I guess, hopefully. Hey, listen, you know, first thing I want to say, Jeff, is you were talking about these racist lawns. Let's not forget, Jeff, it's the brown people that mow these racist lawns, Jeff. That's like picking cotton back in the 1800s, Jeff, okay?
By the way, I got to ask you, do you think she's serious? That crazy
Jeff,
influencer?
Those people are 100% serious about this crap. You know, and you got this other one that says drinking white milk is racist. Apparently, these idiots think that brown cows make chocolate milk, so we should all be drinking brown cow milk. These people, Jeff, I mean, if they had, you know, they're sharp as a head of wet lettuce, Jeff. I mean, these people are morons.
Well, it's like Bill in Sudbury, you know, or Chris in Gloucester, where they call you like your jaw drops when they talk. Like, you're like, are you trolling me or are you that stupid? But anyway, all right, Mark, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, my friend.
I'm with you on this as far as this clown Swallowwell goes. You know, he gets what he deserves, Jeff. You know, this is the most arrogant, smug, self-righteous, pompous, just, pardon my language, but ass in Congress. And the fact that he's now being thrown under the bus and just crucified for this, I think it's fantastic. You know, I pity his wife. You know, I have no use for anybody that cheats on their wife or cheats on the guy they're married to. You know, I've been married 27 years, Jeff, and I would never, ever even consider looking at another woman. You know, but with that being said, people have brought up, you know, when you were talking about it, the slush fund. How about someone bring up today, reintroduce that bill and say, let's get all this out there. And let's see how many of them today are going to still vote and say, no, we can't release any of that stuff. Because I'd like to put them all on the record and then have the media go around and say, well, we just found out about Swalwell and Gonzalez. How can you now sit there and block the release of this stuff? You know, I think now is the perfect time for somebody like a Kennedy to come up.
Oh, I agree with you. I so agree with you. Mark, please don't quote me on this, okay? It was 57 that voted against covering up the slush fund. But the number, I think, was 354, 356. Anyway, it was over 350 members of Congress where they said, no, we got to cover this thing up. No one. We don't want the American people to know, you know, who the money went to, which member of Congress, and which staffer or woman or man or whoever was paid off, and how much the payoff was. No, this has to remain, you know, behind closed doors. This has to remain under lock and key. And what everybody commented on, even the reporters, when they were honest, said, I don't think you can get that many Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything. There's almost nothing where you can get over 350 votes. I believe the final tally was 356 to 57, but don't quote me on that. Okay, whatever. It was somewhere in that range. So 355 Republicans and Democrats, they don't, except when it comes to covering up their sexual misconduct, their sexual harassment, and their payoffs to keep women or men silent with our money. It's unbelievable. And there's no outrage. Mark, I want to ask you this, because a lot of people are texting me this point, and I think they're spot on, but I want to get your take. that the reason what these texters are saying is a big reason why Trump is so reviled and hated up in Washington, D.C., in the swamp, both within the political and media class, the establishment, is because he can't be bought. He can't be bribed. He can't be blackmailed. He's not a Swalwell. He's not a Gonzalez. He's not an Obama, a Biden, a McConnell. I could go on and on. In other words, he's rough around the edges. Yes. Says things sometimes that gets him in trouble. Yes. Can be a little crude, a little vulgar, maybe a little unpresidential a few times. Yes, 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 yes. But, the guy's not drugging and choking and raping women. The guy is not stealing money. The guy's not embezzling money. The guy's not selling his country out to the Chinese. In other words, he can't be bought and he can't be blackmailed. In other words, he can't be controlled. And that's his ultimate sin in the eyes of the swamp. Do you agree with that, Mark?
The thing with him is all of his infidelities and the things he's done are already a matter of public record. I mean, the guy's been in the public eye for, 40, 50 years doing what he does. So stepping out on his wives, as much as I do not like that, it's already a matter of public record. And you were asking, Jeff, why are there so many of these people in Washington? They always say, Jeff, things like rape and sexual assault, it's not so much about the sex, Jeff, it's about the power over the victim. And where would you go, Jeff, if you crave power and control, Jeff? You go to Washington. This government is an aphrodisiac for these kinds of just sick people, Jeff. It's the ultimate power. You have control over millions of people's lives, Jeff. The things you do every day, control women and control men and children. It's their ultimate power trip, and they crave it. They love it. And that's their whole reason for being there. It's not about helping people. It's about their legacy. It's about, having that power over the American people, and it's like intoxicating for them.
Mark, don't get me wrong. I only have eyes for my wife, but I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. You just hit the nail right on the head. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man 70470. 70470. Okay, lines are blazing. But first, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do the two resignations on Capitol Hill this week, that of Congressman Eric Swallwell, Democrat, and Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Republican, do they make you more or less likely to trust Congress? A, more likely. B, less likely. I don't vote in these polls. I'm not allowed to. I don't know why, but they prohibit. Mike and Sandy prohibit. Hey, it's just my show, but, let that go. So I'm not allowed, apparently, to vote in my own, in the poll question. So, but if I was to vote, I would be a B all the way on this. I look at them and I'm like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm like, oh, there's so many more. So many more. But that's me. So I'm a less likely to trust Congress. But anyway, some of you do believe you're more likely to trust Congress. So A, more likely, B, less likely. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. KUHN as in National ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report. KUHN as in National ER. Tom, red, white, and blue, dynamite baby in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Jeff Kuhner, we need him. He's a national treasure, speaking truth to power on a daily basis. That's always red, white, and blue dynamite, baby.
Tom, what's on your mind, my friend?
Jeff, if I could have 2 points today, a little bit on Swalwell, and then our Pope Leo. First on Swalwell, Jeff, it goes down to draining the swamp. We need to prosecute that Christmas party. How about President Trump sign an executive order saying no more payouts? And I think, Jeff, it's sad to say these sexual predators posing as Congress people, they need to be watched. Let's post guards. Let's have sergeant at arms. Let's have attorney generals, assistant attorney generals, and watch these devil dogs. They come from the school of Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. They're impotent men, both physically and morally. So their idea, and it's almost a form of Sharia law in the West, Jeff, treating women truly like garbage. You drug them and rape them. You can't even believe that they do this. How about an executive order? How about some prosecution? Todd Blanche, let's go. Here you go. It's your turn. You know, we really whiffed on Pam Bondi, and let's see what he can do. Now, a quick word on Pope Leo. You know, Jeff, we had the vicar of heresy in Pope Francis saying there's no such thing as hell. And now we have the vicar of heresy. And I gain no pleasure in saying this, Jeff. We're both practicing Catholics. I'll just read you one sentence from section 2266 in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It simply says the Church has acknowledged as well-founded the right and duty of legitimate public authority to punish malefactors by means of penalties commensurate with the gravity of the crime, not excluding, in cases of extreme gravity, the death penalty. So, Pope Leo, what are you talking about? If we're pro-life, we have to be against the death penalty? Jeff, that's borderline heresy. How do they get away with this? And Islam is one of the great religions. Muhammad was a dirtbag. Sharia law is imprisonment and slavery, Jeff. Talk to me, my good man.
Tom, I want you to do me a big favor. Please hang on, because I'm up against the break. I'm urging everybody, if you're not following me on X, all kidding aside, please follow me on X. At the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report. It's all one word, Kuhner. I broke this last night, and it is one of the biggest stories in the world, and it goes directly to what Tom was just saying. Okay, I don't want to get too off topic because we spent, pretty much the entire show yesterday on Pope Leo, but Tom did make a very, very good point about Pope Leo, that in some ways, theologically, he's not making any sense. Well, let me tell you exactly what happened yesterday. As you know, the Pope is on a 4-day trip, a 4-nation trip, forgive me. He's visiting 4 countries in Africa. He started off in Algeria. And yesterday, and this is truly one of the biggest stories in the world, and the media is deliberately not covering it. And it's not just because the Iran war and the blockade is sucking up all the oxygen in the media room. In Algeria, yesterday, Pope Leo walking side by side with the Grand Imam of Algeria, the most prominent Islamic leader in the country, went into the Great Mosque of Algiers. I believe it's one of the biggest mosques, maybe the 3rd biggest mosque in the entire world. And he signed the Golden Book. Now, many of you are going to say, Jeff, what the hell is the Golden Book? The Golden Book is this. It is a book of Islam that Pope Leo was determined to sign, which now marks a religious watershed. It is like a huge treaty between the Muslim world and the Vatican. And what this now means, in plain English, is that now Pope Leo, by signing the Golden Book, has forged an official alliance between the Catholic Church and the Islamic world. The Vatican is now, it's like a treaty or a pact, has now signed and forged a super alliance with Islam. And the reason why Pope Leo was determined to go to Algeria and sign this historic religious treaty, if you want to call it, is because he is finishing what the late Pope Francis started. Pope Francis said he is determined to have peaceful coexistence with Muslims, with Islam. It's part of his larger agenda of allowing Muslim migrants to flood Europe, flood the United States, flood the West. And so to do that, he wants to give Christianity's largest, biggest church, have them give their imprimatur, their signed, sealed, and signed, sealed, and delivered approval of Islam as a faith, Islam as a civilization, Islam as a religion. That it is now on a completely equal par with Christianity, and in particular with the Catholic Church. And so what Pope Leo has done, in plain English, he has now betrayed the Christian West. He has now forged an alliance, a super alliance with the Muslim world. And I think he's doing this because it's appeasement. It's what it is it's a religious Munich. It's a religious version of Munich. By thinking we're two religions who can peacefully coexist on an equal par, and we will give Islam full rights in Europe, full rights in the Christian West, full rights in America, full rights in Latin America, full rights in the Catholic parts or Christian parts of Africa, that this is going to buy off Islam and the Islamic extremists from constantly persecuting, targeting, and murdering Christians. In fact, now you've only whetted their appetite. What you've now shown them is they can roll you. And my prediction, you are now watching the deliberate subjugation, the submission of the church, and I believe ultimately of the Christian West to Islam. And as Tom pointed out, and I want to go right back to him, if you know anything about the Prophet Muhammad, if you know anything about the Quran, if you know anything about the history and heritage and legacy of Islam for 1,500 years since its inception, when has it ever been at peace with Christianity or with any other religion? And now Pope Leo signs this historic alliance. It is our Munich. It's a religious Munich. And I believe now the church, the Vatican, and Christianity, the Christian world, Christendom, as it used to be called, is now going to rue the day. So when President Trump exposed Pope Leo for his far left beliefs and his ties to the Democratic Party, he did the world an entire favor. And remember, and this is now full circle, who did Pope Leo work with? David Axelrod. Who did he meet recently? Obama's top advisor. As I said, he's part of the Obama Chicago political machine, who has done everything in his power to mainstream Islam, to advance Islam in the West, not just in America, but in the West. Barack Hussein Obama. And remember his vow, not just to fundamentally transform America, but to fundamentally transform the West. And what he meant was that by that was not just socialism, yes, not just Marxism, yes, but Islamism. And so Pope Leo is now ultimately doing Obama's bidding. 617-266-6868. Tom, I know you're a very devout Catholic like myself. At this point, as Catholics, what do we do? What can we do? What should we do?
The rosary is our best weapon against this, Jeff. This is an outrage. This is equivalent to John Kerry and Obama filling up the cargo plane full of $100 bills. This is, yes, appeasement, Jeff. It's outrageous. Islam is incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. Islam is incompatible with authentic Catholicism. The Ayatollahs, in my opinion, Jeff, are Lucifer on earth. Now, there are forms of Islam that do live peacefully, but that Shiite, that militant, that fundamental form that wants to conquer the world is a scourge on the planet Earth. And Pope Leo, I'll pray for you, because on Judgment Day, we're all going to face our Creator, including you. And this is very bad and evil, Jeff. And we better pray. I put 30 minutes in last night, and I should put 30 hours in. This is it shakes me at the knees. I have sweat beads on my forehead, Jeff, and you're a godsend for exposing this.
Tom, thank you very, very much for that call. I couldn't believe it. I read the story again and again and again. I couldn't believe it. It's the mother of all betrayals. It truly is. So, and it's gotten lost in that sort of feud between Trump and the Pope, which I understand, obviously, because it's a big story. But the implications of this it's going to be immense. Civilizational. 617-266-6868. Okay, but back to Swalwell, Gonzalez, and really the massive corruption and perversity, the perversion in our Congress and in our members of Congress. And so, I got to ask, are we run by a class of criminals? And are we run by a class of sociopaths? Because that's really what you're watching. And, Mark in New Hampshire, and I share his sentiment. I love my wife dearly. God, I would never, ever cheat on her. I wouldn't even enter my mind. But, cheating on your spouse, fine. Fine. You cheat, it's not a crime. It's between you and your spouse. If you do it with another person, it's consensual. That's a different level. But when you start raping women, choking them as you rape them, drugging their drinks, you're talking about a very different level of depravity. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Wow, Jeff. I think today gives new meaning to the old saying, what a difference a day makes. That news that just dropped just now, I just want to comment on that briefly.
Yes. Quickly, Andy. I don't want the show to get derailed by it, but I just felt everybody needed to know. But okay. Go ahead, Andy. Please, go ahead. Make your point.
But just very quickly, I myself am not a Catholic. I'm Protestant. But I think all of us Catholics and Protestants need to stand shoulder to shoulder and just we reaffirm that Islam is not compatible with the values of the West. And I think we just all need to affirm that just like we will not be intimidated by corrupt politicians, we will also not be intimidated by corrupt church leaders across the spectrum. And that's just my brief comment on that.
Oh, you're dead on. And I promise I'll give you all the time to finish your other point. No, look, what's going on, and this is what's so distressing about it, is, you know, I don't know if people are aware of this, but Trump now is arguing or having a feud with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. And it surprised many people because Meloni is basically the MAGA, you know, the Italian version of MAGA. And she and Trump have had excellent relations. They're close, ideologically, politically, philosophically, personally. They're good friends. But Meloni has come out opposing the war with Iran. And in particular, she attacked Trump for attacking the Pope, saying, you know, lay off the Pope. Of course, he's going to oppose war. What is wrong with you? Leave the pontiff alone. And Trump now has fired back in an interview with an Italian newspaper saying that essentially she's a coward. He's shocked by her behavior. He's very disappointed. She lacks the courage to lead Italy. She lacks the courage to open the Strait of Hormuz. And that the Pope is the one behaving unacceptably. Anyway, look, the point of all this is the reason why Meloni rushed to the defense of Pope Leo is because in Italy, if you've been there or you're married to an Italian as I am, or her, you know, of Italian descent, the Italians revere the papacy. They love the papacy. Their instinct is always to defend the papacy. It's been there for 2,000 years. It is a cradle of Italian heritage, history, culture. I'm just agree, disagree. I'm telling you, just it is what it is. So when Pope Leo goes and creates this new alliance, this grand alliance with Islam, let me tell you the psychological and moral effect it's going to have on Italy. It's going to have them lower their guard to the invasion of these Muslim migrants. Because if the Pope is saying, well, we have an alliance with Islam, we are mandated now to peacefully coexist, they're not a threat, in fact, they're a brother, they're an ally, they're a close friend, we're tied at the hip, it's going to be, well, let him in. The Pope is going to urge, let him in. And so you're going to see Catholic countries in particular, Italy already now besieged by Muslim immigration, France, Catholic country, besieged by immigration. People don't know this. Southern Germany, Bavaria, that whole area, very Catholic. It's all, besieged by Muslim immigration. And I could go on. Portugal, Spain, I could go on and on. This is going to be a disaster for Europe. And it's going to make Catholics in the United States, especially liberal Catholics, even more, not just pro-open borders and pro-unlimited migration, but even more pro-Islam and pro-Muslim. So Pope Leo, this is exactly what Obama wants. He's executing both Pope Francis's plan and now Obama's plan to a T. And so, Andy, you're completely right. This is going to be, the consequences of this are going to be with us for decades to come. Decades to come. And, I mean, I appreciate Tom saying, we have to pray the rosary. I love the rosary. But to me, I think it's time for Leo to go. Ratzinger was forced to resign. I think it's time for Leo to resign. I'm sorry I have to go this far, but we're talking now potentially heresy. This is the stuff of heresy. And I'm thinking, as a Catholic, I feel morally obligated. I'm sorry, I can't accept this. And so maybe it's time now for Catholics to have an open debate has the Pope crossed the red line? Forget interfering now in American politics. Forget feuding with Donald Trump and trying to oppose his agenda. Now you're talking about a religious treaty, a religious alliance of historic proportions, and one now that is going to morally, theologically, philosophically, intellectually, psychologically disarm the West. As I said earlier, it's a religious Munich. And I think, honestly, the Pope should be ashamed of himself. I'm sorry, it pains me to say this. And Grace is going to be on in a couple minutes, and I know she's going to be very angry with me for saying it. She wasn't happy with me yesterday. She said, hands off the Pope, leave the Pope alone. But I'm sorry, I have to call it the way I see it. Andy, please, I want to give you all the time. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay, now I want to pivot and comment on the topic, Swalwell. Jeff, they knew. Both sides of the aisle, they knew what was going on with Swalwell for quite some time. And, you know, recently Melania publicly came out and made a statement about the Epstein victims and called on Congress to get them in the hearing rooms and get them under oath to just tell their whole story, because just, you know, shine the light on the whole thing. And, you know, I'm glad, Jeff, that the light of day is shining on whatever has gone on with Eric Swallwell and, you know, and the other sleazebag on the Republican side of the aisle, ditto. That I'm thinking, Jeff, that if the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth doesn't come out about the Epstein files, it can only mean that many members of Congress were actually in cahoots with that whole ugly thing that went on with Epstein. And what we just got to keep in mind, Jeff, the real vote on the midterms is going to happen during the primaries. And just everybody in MAGA that's just tempted to stay home, pick up their ball and go home, we all got to really be involved in all the primaries and just choosing the nominees, all the congressional nominees. And we just got to be very specific about sending people to Congress that are not going to be for sale. And I think at this point, guys that are in a habit of keeping their vows to their wife are preferable at this point. Because
amen. Oh, amen. Andy, look, you're not 100, as I like to say. You're 1,000% correct. And, you know, I think we can get better leadership. I think we should demand better leadership. But, you know, we've become so numb to how sleazy and corrupt Congress has become. You know, this should be unacceptable. You're completely right, Andy. By the way, I think you're right. I think the Epstein files, clearly, they have politicians, not just world leaders, members of Congress. There's no question. And I think that's another reason why they want to keep it, you know, hush-hush. They want to sweep it under the rug. I want this slush fund, which exists, to the tune of how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, in which our taxpayer money is used for sitting members of Congress, both men and women, senators and members of the House, to pay off people, you know, sex victims who have come out and, you know, who say, whatever, I've been sexually harassed, I was sexually assaulted, I was raped, sexual misconduct. And so sign a non-disclosure agreement, my bad, sign a non-disclosure, You never say this to anyone again. Keep it hush-hush. And here's your $2, $3, $4, $5 million payout. And it's on our dime. And at the very least, if it's our money, can we know the names? Can we have some transparency? So who has actually given out payouts, and how much was the payout? You know, how much in terms of money, how much was it? And who was the alleged victim? I think we have a right to know. Instead, when Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman, and Nancy Mace, as you know, is a victim of sexual assault. And so that's the one thing she doesn't tolerate. And Anna Paulina Luna has been phenomenal on things like the Epstein files or members of Congress who, are assaulting or abusing their positions regarding staffers or interns or women. And so they said, no. We want to open up to the American people the names of every member of Congress who has participated in these non-disclosure agreements, who have now, agreed to settle for millions of dollars, claims that they abused, molested, raped, or harassed staffers or women. And over 350 members of Congress said, "Niet." And it was bipartisan. Only 57 members said, open up the books. Give full transparency. So what that tells me, Andy, is that out of, over 435 members of Congress, only 57 have their hands clean? That's what that tells me. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. We should be, I'm not saying you want, Mother Teresa in there. I'm not, that's a standard too high. But don't give me freaking Caligula. We don't want people who rape, assault, target women, and then use our money to hush it all up. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Okay, we finally made contact with Grace. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Grace Voto. Full disclosure, yes, I really married up. My wonderful better half. Grace, I gotta ask you, Swallwell is gone. Tony Gonzalez is gone. The allegations now, especially about Swallwell, are beyond stomach turning. What's your reaction?
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for having me on today. Yes, indeed, good riddance is my reaction. What we're seeing right now in Congress is that Washington, D.C. continues to attract not the best of the best across our country, but the worst of the worst. And for many, many people that go to Congress, they see it as a means to enrich themselves, as a means to have a great time, often as a side gig. They're often seeing Congress as a side gig where they really want to be influencers or podcasters. So for them, it's a stepping stone to fame, money, and hedonism rather than serving the people. And we have to do a much, much better job of vetting the characters that we're sending there.
Are you shocked about Swallwell?
Honestly, Jeff, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all because you and I were in D.C. for 12 years, and one of the reasons that we left is that it is a cesspool, and it's a cesspool everywhere. It's a cesspool in the media. It's really overall a sickening place to be. My first reaction when I came to Massachusetts was, wow, I would meet somebody and say, are you from here? How long have you been here? They would say, yeah, I've been here. My grandmother's here. My children are going to college. They're going to come back and live here. Many communities in Massachusetts are organic. And the striking fact about Washington, D.C. is that those communities are not organic. Mostly you meet people and you say, where are you from? And everybody's from somewhere else. And so they go to D.C. precisely to do lots of things in anonymity that they wouldn't do back home.
Grace, these women that are coming out now, several of them are alleging rape. Others are alleging sexual misconduct, sexual assault. They're saying that he spiked their drinks. They were then essentially paralyzed. He would then take them into a hotel room, like the fifth woman now that just came out saying that he was choking them, raping them, and he continued to choke them as he raped them. They would basically almost go unconscious. They thought they were going to die. What kind of monsters do we have now as members of Congress? And what can we do realistically as a country to stop this? Because it's getting, to me, it's getting clearly out of control. We are being run now by a criminal class. Am I wrong?
Well, Jeff, you're 100% correct. But there are so many issues that converge right now in these scandals. Like some of these are financial scandals, like Representative Sheila Sheriffless McCormick of Florida. She's going to be pushed out because she laundered $5 million of FEMA disaster funds. So some of these are financial scandals, which we can discuss separately from the sexual ones. But look, Jeff, the big elephant in the room when we talk about sexual scandal is that you now have a society that is exposed to pornography from a very, very young age. And therefore, also from a young age, the thrill of that disappears. And so they have to escalate what they need to do in order to, get a thrill. I mean, you see even in Kristi Noem's husband. I mean, that's pretty disturbing stuff that came out about her husband. So, it's across the country where we're seeing this problem. We have to confront it head on as Christians. The sexual appetite is essentially, it's insatiable. So if you go down that road, it only degenerates. We used to teach this, that you will become a slave to your sexuality. Whereas right now, we have a society that thinks that the more you explore sex, the freer you get. That's really not true. The more you explore it, the more enslaved you are, and the more corrupt you become. And the more perverse you need to go in order to get the same thrill.
Well, that's what was happening with Swalwell. He had to keep escalating and escalating and escalating, and now it's pretty much, it's destroyed him. Grace, I've got to ask you, what do you say to the argument that many in the Democratic Party knew about Swalwell? It was an open secret. In fact, it came out, 6-7 years ago, that he had sexual relations with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang, and while he was on the House Intelligence Committee, and that he handed over classified top secret information to her. She then eventually fled back to China. Everybody knew Swalwell was a sex predator like Bill Clinton, a sexual predator, a rapist, an alleged rapist, and someone who was a monster. And yet everyone turned a blind eye. Is it because they're doing it themselves, or is it because they love the fact that they can now blackmail him?
Well, Jeff, there's a culture in D.C. I won't expose you if you don't expose me. And as we saw very clearly with, say, Marjorie Taylor Greene, what happens to those who do say, no, I'm not playing ball. I'm going to stand up to how things are going here. Well, she got kicked out. So if you don't play ball, you eventually leave. Look what happened to you and I. We were just in the media, right? Not even in Congress. And eventually we said, you know what? We don't really want to raise our children here. So there's a culture there. If you want to retain your virtue, you eventually have to leave D.C. And the people who stay are making bargains of some kind.
Grace, how is this going to play out in the midterms? You've got sex scandal after sex scandal. Apparently now more Democrats are going to fall. There's more financial scandals coming down the pike. Is this going to have an impact on the midterms? And are the American people going to realize you can't put these criminals back in power?
Well, Jeff, I think that the midterms are really going to revolve around bigger issues than these individual scandals, because many American families this becomes background noise to them. The approval rating of Congress, of the media, of most of our institutions is very low, and families are in survival mode, many American families. So their first priority is going to be, who is going to allow me to feed my family in a way that doesn't totally exhaust me on a daily basis. I think it's going to come down to the economy, no matter what.
The Iran war, do you think that's going to have an impact?
I think it's going to have a huge impact, mostly in the sense that there's a portion of Trump's base that is likely not to turn out. And we have a portion of our base that is increasingly frustrated and will want to send a message. And on the other hand, the Democratic base is extremely motivated to poke him in the eye and give him a big defeat.
We have been talking with Grace Vuoto, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace, as always, thank you so much. Dynamite stuff. And we will talk to you next time here on the Kuhner Report. Okay, Grace says it's the culture in Washington, D.C. I cover up for you. You cover up for me. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868 is the number. Brian in Hanson. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hi. Yeah, no, the thing is that what we have to realize is that it's a political mafia. Okay, you kiss the ring of the people because they control the money so that you can get elected. Okay, no matter how good you are, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is the problem, is that people who want the job should not get the job. We should get people who want to help other people rather than themselves. And those are the people that don't want to go there because they know that they're going to dig up their past. And no one is relieved with sin. So that's my view.
Well, Brian, let me ask you this, and if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. If, say, the Kuhner man or the Republican Party in Massachusetts said, Brian, we want honest, good, smart, intelligent, patriotic people to run. We'd love for you to run, say, for Congress. And we're going to put $10, $20, $30 million behind you. You're going to have a real campaign with a real infrastructure. We're going to run ads on TV, ads on radio. I mean, we're really going to push hard to knock off whatever, take your pick. Any, Ayanna Pressley. I'm just, whatever. Any of these Massachusetts Democrats. Would Brian and Hanson say yes? Or would Brian and Hanson say thanks, but no thanks?
Because I took a test and it said to me that I can handle anything but stupid. Okay. And if I go to Congress, I'm going to call them out on their stupidity. Okay. I am. And I'm going to get censured by them because they said, you have to be more civil. I said, I can't handle stupid. Okay. People are dumber because of some of these comments. And we can't afford our congressmen to lose any intelligence points because they already have little as they have. So the thing is, no, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would have to dope slap everyone. Okay. I'd be taken out of the cleaning house. Okay.
Your IQ's too high. Brian, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, look, let me be honest with you, like I'm in the confessional, as I like to say, brutally honest. I would, people have been saying, Jeff, run for governor, run for Congress, run for, all these offices. I said, my wife and kids won't let me, number one. Number two, really, God is my witness. I'm not afraid of any quote unquote skeletons in my closet. I'm not. What would bother me, and the reason why I wouldn't run, outside of my family obviously not wanting me to run, is they lie. The media just smears you. So, you read about yourself and say the Boston Globe or, take your pick, the New York Times or whatever, and you're like, I don't recognize this Jeff Kuhner that they're talking about. He's a Hitler lover, a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist, a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a transphobe, an Islamophobe. I mean, they turn you into the second coming of Genghis Khan. And so, and I've seen this, by the way, done to Republican candidates in particular, especially conservatives or patriots or MAGA candidates, again and again and again. It's not like Swalwell, where you're exposing the truth, i.e., the guy's a monster and a sexual predator. That's not, that they're not doing that. They're lying about you. They're smearing you. They're defaming you. They're libeling you. And so you say to yourself and to your family, is it really worth it? I mean, your name is mud because you have the Chris's in Gloucester and the Bills in Sudbury, these hardcore communist moonbats, okay, political thugs who will believe anything that the liberal media says. And so your reputation is tarnished. As I said, it's in the mud, and it's all a pack of lies. None of it is true. And I think that's why so many good people, qualified people, people of character and integrity and intelligence who could really contribute to American public life, to our country, say it's not worth it. It's not because I'm trying to hide something or, they're going to dig this up or dig that up. It's they go, no, really, I'm not perfect. I'm not claiming to be perfect, but, I'm not like these guys. I'm not an embezzler. I'm not I don't have affairs with people and end up committing suicide and I try to cover it up. I don't go around drugging people's drinks a la Swalwell and choking them and raping them. I'm not Bill Clinton where I'm raping this one here and assaulting this one here. It's not that. I won't recognize who I am. I never knew I was the second coming of Himmler. I had no idea I was the KKK. Suddenly I'm KKK. What the hell just happened? So that's the problem, is that the Democrats have this hate smear machine, and it is very effective. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Let me ask you another question. And I get where Brian is coming from. They own you. You run for office. You have to raise money. You have to kiss the ring. And I get all that. So the process itself is corrupting. You become beholden. You begin to make deals. You promise favors, and suddenly you're betraying your promises and you're abandoning your voters and your constituents. I get that, but we're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about serial rapists. We're talking about embezzlers and thieves and sociopaths. Okay, by the way, a couple lines are open. Sandy and I were just having an absolutely fascinating conversation during the break. And I think she made an absolutely, not just valid, but a really brilliant, insightful point. She said, look, Jeff, you have to understand the mentality of these victims. They get raped by, say, a very powerful congressman like Eric Swallwell. And what do they think? They think, well, am I the only one? You don't know. And you're like, well, if I'm the only one and I publicly say he raped me, I'm a sitting duck. I'm going to be destroyed. The Democrat media is going to smear me. The Democrats are going to come after me. Their operatives are going to come after me, my family. They're going to destroy me professionally. I'm going to have no job. I'm going to be facing death threats. And so that's what I don't want to say buys the silence, but that's what almost compels the silence from so many of these victims. And then if you notice, if, say, eventually one has the courage to just say, I don't care, I got to say it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to come out and just, I got to report to the world what exactly happened to me. When they see others coming out, then you start to see, it goes from a trickle to a flood. And then you see other victims start coming out. And what you notice is often with these sexual predators, whether it's Bill Clinton, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's now let's take Swalwell, take your pick, is with these sexual predators, there's never just one. Because they're compulsive. They can't help themselves. It's woman after woman after woman after woman. And they tend to have an MO. And clearly Swalwell, you can now see a pattern. Either get them drunk or spike their drink and then always take them to a hotel room. And then they're at his mercy. Either they're too drunk or, they're on the influence of a drug, a date rape drug, and that's when he starts to do his thing. And so, but a lot of these women are afraid, and I don't blame them, because they're saying, A, no one's going to believe me, and B, even if I come out and, say, okay, I'll take all the slings and arrows, your life is over. Your career is going to be in tatters. Your family's going to be threatened. You're going to be threatened. I mean, that's the problem, is that these powerful people have powerful friends who will do everything and anything to destroy anyone who gets in their way. And I want to be brutally honest with you. Democrats are vicious. They're vicious. And they will even lie about someone being a rapist or having committed a sexual assault just to destroy that person by smearing that person. Look what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. Clearly, Christine Blasey Ford was lying. I mean, or look at E. Jean Carroll and Trump. Clearly, she was lying. She couldn't remember the day, the month, the time, the year. She claimed she had a dress that she was wearing on the day of the so-called rape or the sexual assault. That dress only came out years after where the alleged sexual assault was supposed to have taken place. And then you find out through her own email that she got the whole idea from an episode of Law and Order. Now, in any other place but Manhattan, they would have been laughed out of court. But they smeared Trump, and look at them. They almost derailed Kavanaugh. And the guy that led the charge against Kavanaugh was Eric Sexy Man Swalwell. What did Sexy Man say? Believe all women. If women come out, and it was one woman, it wasn't many, it was just one. And he said, no. They don't lie about these things. Except now he's saying they lie about him. You see, they don't lie for anybody else except him. But he was the one that said, he's, pouring drugs into these, spiking these drinks with drugs. He's raping women. And everybody was looking at him like, what are you talking about? And he would look at Swalwell now. Look at when he goes on TV about what he said about Kavanaugh. How he's, drugging them, raping them, dragging them into rooms, choking them. And everyone's like, what? Nobody's made these allegations. And now it turns out he was revealing himself. It was classic projection. Everything he was projecting upon Kavanaugh, down to spiking drinks and choking women and dragging them off into rooms, in his case it's a hotel room, and just raping one woman after another, that was him. That was him. Roy in Everett. Thanks for holding, Roy, and welcome.
Jeff, look, I was on the phone earlier. I wanted to talk about Pope Leo, but leaving that aside for a moment, I really believe that some group has to have a national commission to investigate Congress. This has come really a bad situation. We have a lot of bad people that in Congress. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking both sides. And nothing is happening. We just continue to have people in Congress that are so-called ignorant and just they're not really with it. You know what I mean, Jeff?
Roy, I agree with you. But, if they just weren't that smart, I'd say that's one thing. But we're not talking, they're evil. And I think it's what Mark in New Hampshire said earlier. They're drawn to power. They're drawn to lording it over people. And, rape is ultimately about power. It's not about sex. It's about the power. And look, there's just a disproportionate amount of sexual predators, criminals, crooks, thieves, embezzlers that go to Congress. I mean, it's obvious. And they almost see it like stealing money from a bank. And they're figuring nobody's going to catch you. And I think that's our problem. I think our problem is, look, I believe in term limits, Roy. I think we have to have term limits. But I don't think it's a silver bullet. I think, in all honesty, Washington has gotten way too big, way too powerful, way too much money. And that's the reason why it's attracting these kind of people. And I'm not trying to be insulting, but if I list to you the names of any of the, look, here, to make it bipartisan, look at Mitch McConnell. Just look at him. At best, let me tell you this, at best, and I'm not saying this to be insulting, I'm just telling you that's exactly what he is. At best, Mitch McConnell is a small town lawyer. That's what he is. Small town, maybe he can make it, say, in Lexington, Kentucky, on a college campus or whatever. What I'm saying is, he's no brilliant lawyer. He's not going to argue cases in front of the Supreme Court. He's just a mediocre lawyer. That's the best he can do. How is this guy ever going to make $80 to $100 million? Well, you become a political thug and a crook. You go to the Senate, and then you ingratiate yourself with your wife and her family business, and you just, and you sell the country out, and before you know it, you're a modern-day oligarch. Now, take Eric Swallwell, since he's the topic of the day. Really, below average intelligence. He really is. He's not a smart man. In fact, he's quite a stupid man. He's barely passed the bar, barely became a lawyer. How does this guy, what is he worth? $15, $20 million? Maybe the next governor of California? Sits on the House Intelligence Committee? Has all of these young, attractive female staffers in their 20s working for him? Many of them said, well, I looked up to him. He was a California Democrat. I saw him on TV. He ran campaigns. People said he was going places. Maybe Senator Swalwell. Maybe Governor Swalwell. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Kuhner man.
Hi, Victor.
My pleasure talking with you again. I'm just going to say this. The Democrat and the Republican Party apparatus, they're the enforcers. Just think of it that way. They're the sheriff. They decide who's going to prison, who's going to get a walk, who's not going to get looked at. And it's because they have become so all-powerful, Jeff. Since 1971, we did away temporarily with the gold standard backing up our dollar. That's why everyone's poor. 90% of the people are either poor or on their way to being poor because of that one act that was signed into law. These people are out of control because they have unlimited control of the money supply. They have their 435 pawns in the Congress. I mean, in the
House.
In the House, they vote for whatever monetary policies that they need. They steal what they need. I mean, this billions of dollars being sold up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You have to have a clown suit on to not realize that's what's been going on forever. You don't get $39 trillion in debt and an out-of-control budget deficit. We can't stop the train, Jeff, as you know. It's because these politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, they know they call the shots. And if we do not make our focus not on ethics, they're never going to be ethical. We hope they're not going to be criminal. But unless we take control of the budget by putting back a gold standard or some type of standard where these people have to be statesmen instead of Santa Claus, it's the only hope for America, Jeff.
That's a very good point. Victor, I think you put your finger on it. And look, I just want you and everyone, just think of how low the quality now of our members of Congress has become. And I'm not saying it was a golden age before, the 19th century. Yes, we had some phenomenal, I'm thinking of Senator Daniel Webster, Henry Clay, John Calhoun. I didn't care for Calhoun's, defense of slavery, but he was, a very articulate, intelligent senator, spoke for the South, these, huge philosophical debates in the Senate. So, you had real people of high intellectual quality. Ilhan Omar, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Ayanna Pressley, Hank Johnson. I just want to give you the name, and to be fair, here on the Republican side, John Thune, Mitch the Squish, McConnell, John Boehner, Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson. I could just go on. Steve Scalise. You look at them and you're like, at best, empty suit after empty suit after empty suit at best. If not, crook. And you're like, this is the best that we can do? No wonder we're in trouble. Philip in Salem. Thanks for holding, Philip, and welcome.
Fellow Croatian calling back.
Phil! My fellow Croatian American. How are you, my friend?
I'm hanging in there. Had some health issues in January, but I'm back on the green side of the grass.
Good. Philip, I hate to rush you. We've got 1 minute left. Let her rip, my friend.
Make it quick. You know that if you file a form and it's a federal form and you lie on it, that is a felony. Why not just make it, if you run for Congress, you have to answer a simple question. Have you ever fiddled and diddled one of your staff members? Have you ever treated them, a woman or a man, as if that was insubordinate, that they had to kowtow to your demands? Did you ever spike a drink? Let them force them to lie on that form. That way, when they're exposed, it's an automatic felony. You go to jail. Do not collect $200. No bailouts. And simple and nice. Because you know what? They ask you on your IRS 1040, did you ever have cryptocurrency? A lot of people put down no, even though they bought it. Guess what? You have lied on a federal form. You have committed a felony. So let's get these bastards where they belong, in the jail, where they can be raped, perhaps, and maybe they'll know what it's like.
You see, I know you're of Croatian descent because you're so freaking smart. Only a Croatian could be that smart. Philip, honestly, you are so correct. Brilliant. I love it. And I think one of the questions you have to ask is, have you ever raped anyone? Do you try to choke them? You try to choke them unconscious as you rape them?